Toto Wolff just casually dropped a bombshell that has the entire Formula One world doing double takes. The Mercedes team principal is claiming that the new 2026 Formula One cars could theoretically hit 400 kilometers per hour. That's nearly 250 miles per hour for our American friends. To put that in perspective, that's faster than most supercars will ever dream of going. And we're talking about doing it on a racetrack with 19 other maniacs inches away from your rear wing. Now, before you start picturing Lando Norris breaking the sound barrier at Monza, there's a massive catch here, and it reveals just how dramatically different Formula One is about to become in 2026. Because while Wolff is technically right about the speed potential, the reality is far more complex. And frankly, far more interesting than just big numbers. This isn't just about bragging rights or marketing hype. This is about a fundamental shift in how Formula One cars will work, how drivers will race them, and how the entire sport is about to change forever. And trust me, when you understand what's really happening here, you'll realize that 400 kilometers per hour might actually be the least impressive thing about these new machines. Let's rewind to August when Toto first made this claim, because the context is absolutely crucial. Picture this. Formula One is facing a PR nightmare. The 2026 power unit regulations had just been finalized, and the reaction from fans and media was, let's be honest, pretty lukewarm. People were calling the new hybrid systems overcomplicated, questioning whether they'd actually make racing better, and some were even suggesting Formula One was losing its soul to environmental politics. Into this storm of criticism steps Toto Wolff, never one to shy away from bold statements, appearing on the Beyond the Grid podcast with a number that made everyone's jaws drop: 400 kilometers per hour. But here's the thing about Toto that makes this moment so perfect. He immediately followed up with the most Austrian honesty you've ever heard. Quote, "If you put it all together, we could do 400 kilometers per hour, or maybe even exceed it. But obviously, you're going to run out of energy for the next straight, and then not be quick enough." Classic Toto. Give you the headline, then immediately explain why it's not quite what it seems. But this wasn't just marketing spin or typical team principal hyperbole. This was Toto essentially giving us a masterclass in the fundamental contradiction that's about to define Formula One racing. Because what he was really saying is that these 2026 cars are going to be absolute rockets in short bursts, but energy management is about to become more critical than ever before, and that changes everything. So here's where things get really fascinating. And I want you to think about this like ordering drinks at a bar. Stay with me on this analogy because it perfectly explains what's happening with these 2026 power units. Imagine you walk into a bar and the bartender says you can have the strongest cocktail they've ever made. But here's the catch. You only get one shot glass worth. And once it's gone, you're stuck with water for the next 10 minutes. That's essentially what these new Formula One cars are going to be like. Mercedes high-performance powertrains managing director Hywel Thomas laid this out beautifully on the same podcast, and his explanation should terrify and excite every racing fan in equal measure. He said the start of straight performance is going to be, quote, "pretty epic in comparison to what we've got today." But then comes the kicker. We know we're going to start to derate earlier on the straight because we haven't got enough electrical energy to use it all the time. Translation? These cars are going to launch off corners like they've been shot out of a cannon, but halfway down the straight, they're going to hit an invisible wall as the battery runs dry. Now, here's why this is absolutely revolutionary. Current Formula One cars are already energy limited, but in 2026, that limitation is going to be so extreme that it fundamentally changes what speed even means. You might hit 400 kilometers per hour for 5 seconds, but then you're crawling at 320 for the rest of the straight, while your competitor, who managed their energy better, is flying past you. It's like having a sports car that can do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, but then the engine shuts off and you have to push it the rest of the way. The strategic implications are mind-bending. Do you use your electrical boost early to get track position, section, knowing you'll be vulnerable later? Do you save it for the end of the straight to maximize overtaking opportunities? And here's the really crazy part. With active aerodynamics coming in 2026, drivers will be able to adjust their wing angles on the fly, meaning they can choose between maximum straight line speed or energy efficiency. It's like having a Formula One car with a manual transmission for aerodynamics, and the driver has to make split-second decisions about when to shift between configurations. Suddenly, 400 kilometers per hour doesn't sound impressive anymore. It sounds terrifying, because achieving it might mean you've just made the worst strategic decision of your race. But here's where Toto's 400 kilometer per hour claim becomes absolutely brilliant marketing, and I mean that in the most devious way possible. Because while everyone is debating whether Formula One cars can actually hit these ridiculous speeds, they're completely missing the real story. And the real story is that Toto just made a bet with the entire motorsport world, and most people don't even realize they're playing. Think about it. When was the last time you heard anyone talking about Formula One top speeds? Seriously, when was the last time maximum velocity was even part of the conversation? We talk about lap times, we obsess over pole positions, we analyze sector times down to the thousandth of a second, but top speed? That's been relegated to a random stat that flashes on screen for half a second during qualifying. Toto just changed that forever with one podcast appearance. Now, every single 2026 test session is going to have journalists with radar guns pointed at the main straight. Every single race weekend is going to feature commentators breathlessly reporting whether anyone got close to that magical 400 number. Hell, someone's probably going to create a dedicated social media account just to track 2026 F1 top speeds. Toto turned a technical regulation change into appointment television, and he did it by making a claim that's technically true, but practically impossible to achieve consistently. It's genius. But here's the deeper game Toto is playing, and this is where it gets really interesting. By focusing everyone's attention on this theoretical maximum speed, he's actually deflecting from the real challenge Mercedes is facing with these 2026 regulations. Because while everyone is arguing about whether 400 kilometers per hour is possible, they're not asking the much more important question: can Mercedes build a power unit that manages energy better than Ferrari, Honda, or Red Bull powertrains? And that question, my friends, is going to determine who wins championships, not who hits the highest speed trap reading. Toto just gave himself 2 years of cover while Mercedes figures out the most complex engineering challenge in Formula One history. If they nail the energy management system, he looks like a prophet. If they don't, well, he can always point to that one time they hit 399 kilometers per hour in testing and say they were close. It's the perfect hedge bet, and it's absolutely brilliant.